And welcome back to the 941 Sports Zone after I'd say about a 3-week vacation over the holidays where we were able to sort of reboot and recharge and get ourselves back on track for the 2024 sports season, I guess you would say. And
brand new set.
And not a brand new guest, though. Mr. Bill Madden here with me tonight. I'm John Mussone, if you've forgotten in the last 3 weeks. And we're here at the brand new used car indoor lot. Am I saying that right, Francis, over there? Yeah, I think that's what it is. And they're going to have they can house up to 80 cars inside in the showroom. And this Douglas Jeep, obviously, Douglas Jeep being our home for the 941 Sports Zone, and they've done a great job with this new facility and getting it up to speed. And I think they're going to do a heck of a lot of business out of here.
Yeah, I was talking to the guy on the way in. He guaranteed me this whole spot outside here is going to be filled in real soon.
Yeah, and I think there was, big undertaking, big piece of property, an old concrete piping facility that turned into, I think, something where the Verizon or whoever used it as a sort of a substation of some sort. But now it is a Douglas Jeep used car lot. So if you're looking for a used car, come down here. It's located on the bypass, just south of Detweiler's, which I think that's pretty much the demarcation mark around here. People usually
sounds like it.
So right there on the southbound side of 41. So if you come on down, they'll be happy to get you in a used car. And if you don't want to go to the used car, going back to where we were before, the new car lot, which is just south of the 776 bypass on 41 in South Venice. So with that, Bill, we're here. A lot of things have happened in the last 3 weeks, but rather than sort of trying to detail every little last thing, I think it's probably best if we just sort of hit a lot of the highlights in regards to what happened, and then maybe some of the bigger stories, especially. My goodness, in the last 5 days, we're taping on a Tuesday night here, and we're looking at what happened with some coaching changes and some things that have been significant changes in
both
the
on the NFL and the college football side, all kind of changes, and it's hard to keep up, John. In fact, I was hearing news on the way in. I'm going to share later that people may not even know yet. So
right, yeah. So we're talking about some stuff there's a lot of things they're going to catch up on, get us back up to speed. But we always start local, Bill, and and we always kind of look at things. How what affects the local area, and as local as we can get right now is Tampa Bay Bucks and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a huge victory in the first round of the playoffs. Not to mention the lead up to it, where it was sort of dramatic, where they had to win one game out of the last two to get in the playoffs, go out and against a pretty game Carolina Panthers team, get a 9-0 win, and then here we come. We're playing the Eagles, who we're spiraling down where you know what you're going to get, and the Buccaneers really laid it on them.
Yeah, and I was impressed with Tampa's way they came down the stretch. They won 5 of 6, kind of the opposite of Philadelphia, who lost 5 of 6. And nice job against Carolina. They shut them out 9-0, which I applaud their defense for coming up. Their offense just did just enough to get by. But it did give them that one home game in the playoffs, which is vastly important, as you could see over the weekend with some of these cold weather games, which I don't think Tampa would have liked very much.
Right, no doubt about it. So now they get to go to Detroit, cold weather, indoors. A team that's been. I would say that Detroit, and we'll get into it more a little later. But Detroit as a matchup, I think Detroit probably has the upper hand at this point. But they have been sort of the darling of the NFL in the last maybe 18 months, with Dan Campbell coming in and having his sort of bravado, you would call it, and
kneecap philosophy. Yes.
And gone on there and done some things and revived Jared Goff's career.
Yep.
And by the way, so it'll be an interesting game from the perspective of who can kind of figure out what to do in regards to how to get to the next level. With the Detroit being a little less experienced than this Buccaneers unit, actually, because you think about it. The coaching staff and some of the players that are on there, they've been through the playoffs for the last few years, and of course a Super Bowl run when Tom Brady was here. So
yeah, and back to that Philly game, which you said we'll get to the Detroit matchup a little later. But that Philly game, they totally looked uninterested. That game could have been 50-19 if Tampa didn't have some key drops. They just did not look cohesive at all. In fact, they haven't looked that way in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah,
and probably the most downward franchise in the league. And after starting off 10-1. And ending up where they did. And I think that whole city is just very pissed right now.
Right.
Both the team and more maybe importantly, the coach, and does the owner feel the same way? I think we'll probably find out in the next 3 to 5 days.
Nick Sirianni was at the 10-1 mark, was a prime candidate for Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
And then goes ahead and loses 5 out of the last 6 games. And the game he won against the Giants was a close call too.
Yeah, it was.
And so yeah, it was very. And you didn't expect it. It seemed like that team in particular was a solid base of players. But you could see it in the game against the Buccaneers. They were just not connecting in any way, shape, or form.
No, and A.J. Brown not being there helped Tampa, but I don't care if he was there or not.
No,
they're going to lose that game.
It wasn't going to happen.
And I don't think it was even last night. That just team is, you hear the phrase, the coach lost the team. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but there was moves made by the GM and other parts of the organization that kind of like handcuffed him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he appreciated it, and whether it didn't reflect well on his players, and they didn't perform at all the last few weeks. So, like I said, I just think the whole town is very upset with the whole team after the start they had.
And this ownership and this management group, don't forget, Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl, and 2 years later he was to the curb.
No, they pulled the trigger quick.
They're not going to wait around.
And probably faster than other teams around the league that stick with coaches for longer periods of time. Maybe not enough pressure, but that city kind of demands that. And like I said, I think something may happen. I think he actually might get replaced. I don't think they can stick around another year. But what if you start out next year, you're 1-4, you wasted another year.
Right.
And then that's the kind of path they're going right now. The teams have figured out Philadelphia a little bit, and they haven't adjusted at all.
It almost reminds me somewhat of Atlanta a couple years back when they had the big loss, the comeback loss to the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
And you thought, which was the makings of a team that was they were on the verge of winning a Super Bowl, and
they should have won that Super Bowl against the Patriots a couple of years ago. Yeah.
And then the next year things went south, and just everything started falling apart all around them. So how delicate the balance is. I remember a long time ago, and I can't remember who quoted it, but a guy who in the know. I think it was Jerry Glanville. Okay, Jerry Glanville was the interesting cat. Well, you can go probably a whole podcast on Jerry Glanville. But Jerry Glanville said from the talent from the number 1 team down to the number 32 team is not that different.
No.
Okay, but it's delicate because you don't have 50 guys on the bench. You can't stockpile players. You've got salary caps. You've got rosters. You have 53-man rosters and whatnot. So it can be very difficult to manage that. And if the wrong couple guys go get injured or don't go a little south on you or whatever it may be, or you lose the team for whatever the reason is, it's very interesting to see how that all plays out and how quick it can tumble. You could be the top 2 or 3 team in the league, and next 2 years later you're the number 1 pick in the draft, and that's what that means.
That's true. And I was down on Todd Bowles a little bit this year, absolutely. But they played for him the last month of the season, and they had these young guys stepping up on the outside and receiving. You saw it last night, and the defense, of course, performed phenomenally. So I'm impressed with how they played for him, and it looks like they wanted to go an extra round, maybe 2. We'll see.
Right.
And I'm interested to see how that's going to all turn out Sunday at 3:00 in Detroit.
Todd Bowles, being a Jets fan, never was impressed with him as a leader. He's better now as far as his talking skills, and it seems like his leadership qualities have gotten a little bit better. But he always hung his hat on his defense, and he was a very highly sought after defensive coordinator. But there were times that his defense, just the calling of the defense seemed off. And I would say the last 2/3 of the season, I think he's done a fantastic job as a defensive coordinator.
And what has he done? Blitz, 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 blitz. And last night you saw they must have blitzed. I think I saw a stat on every pass play they blitzed 60% of the time.
Yeah.
And Eagles could not handle it. They have just a short window to throw the ball in, and they couldn't. They had one big play on offense to set up a touchdown. But other than that, the running game, they abandoned that. So the game plan for Philly fell right into Tampa Bay's hand, and
100%.
Todd Bowles did a great job.
And Jalen Hurts, for as good as he's played and how well he's
mediocre this year.
Very much so. And I want to, sometimes you look at a skill set like his was in college, where initially he was sort of the dual threat guy. Mostly the running side of things seemed to be his forte. Yep. He could complete some passes, but they didn't ask much of him at Alabama. He goes to Oklahoma, kind of hones his skills as a quarterback, comes out, raises some eyebrows. But it looked as though that, you talk about the blitz, it looked as though that they were just trying to keep him contained. Sometimes it's just that 1 10, 12-yard run that gets you the first down and keeps drives going. And it looked as though that either he didn't want to or he wasn't able to kind of get away from some things. And when he had to stand there in that pocket and deliver, and maybe not having the guys that he wanted to throw to with an A.J. Brown being out, he looked pedestrian.
Well, part of his game is running, and there may be some injuries that they didn't talk about. Not to use that as an excuse. Baker had some injuries as well, and he ran the ball a little bit. They got him out of some tough spots yesterday, but some of that factored in. And you made him a pure pocket passer. He's not. He hasn't got there yet. He's getting better.
Compared to where he was in school, college. He's a huge upgrade.
Devontae Smith seemed to be the only guy he could throw to yesterday, and he had a great game, but that was it. He had a short pass to a tight end on a little drag play, but other than that, very subpar game by both Jalen Hurts and the whole offense as a whole.
Another thing about the Buccaneers, obviously, their division was considered to be a down division. We had a Carolina that didn't really seem like they had much to offer, but I think Atlanta and New Orleans. Now looking at the Buccaneers as we see in this moment. I think the division was a little more competitive than maybe we gave it credit for, or before the season started. So I think that sort of battling it out for that division title, which you had to have to get in the playoffs, may have been like that same you see when a baseball team comes into the playoffs and they had to fight their way to get in or fight their way to get to the pennant. They're a little better. They're a little more seasoned. They've got that flow. They got a little more positive energy because that's one thing I think Philly didn't carry into the game.
Speaking on
positive energy.
Speaking on that topip, playing better towards the end of the year and getting momentum going into playoffs. How about C.J. Stroud in Houston, Jordan Love in Green Bay, going to Dallas and just decimating a Dallas team that was expected to win. They were favored by a touchdown, and they got blown out.
You also Josh Allen as well, who played really well at the end of the year. So with all that, the Buccaneers are. Right now, you've got San Francisco, who was the big dog, I would say, in
number one seed, sure.
Number one seed. But right now, the way the hot hand, don't count the Buccaneers out next week. And then see what happens after that, whatever comes of it.
I hope so, John. But yeah, we're all excited about the win last night. They can compete against Detroit. They played them earlier in the year.
Right.
Lost. Didn't have a great game. Detroit, we'll get into that, have some great running backs, and they mixed the ball up with the run and pass very, very well.
No doubt.
So they've got that to deal with in a few days.
No doubt. So again, it'd be fun to watch, see how the Buccaneers do, and interesting to see how things play out. You have this is the kind of team that can really spark a lot of interest, not just from the local base, but around the country with their.
I think Baker has turned the country around.
On him.
Those commercials in Cleveland. I think everybody got kind of like, who's this guy? He's doing 95 commercials on TV every second, and what has he done? Not much. Right. And then he kind of failed in Cleveland, and he bumped around the league, and with the Rams, instead of bench, Carolina. Comes to Tampa, gets a new lease on life, and has performed incredibly, especially in the last 8 weeks of the season.
No doubt. All right, with that, we'll take our first break now. And let me remind you guys that later on in the show, the podcast, we'll be doing our What's Bugging Me segment. We always figure out something that's bugging us. And I think after almost a month or 3 weeks of sitting around, there's a lot of things that have been bugging a lot of us in the sports world. I might keep it to football. I may not. Depends on how things go. But there's definitely some things, and we thank Truly Nolan for being the sponsor for our What's Bugging Me segment. With that, we'll take our first break, come back here, and we'll talk a little bit more about maybe we're going to tack a little bit towards college football in the state. Talk a little bit about some of the things that are kind of going on and what to expect from maybe some of the things that are going on in the portal and different things like that. So with that, take a break here, come back to Douglas Jeep and their new used car showroom right after these messages. Back here at Douglas Jeep, their used car showroom located right next to Detweiler's, south side of 41 in Venice, and you guys can come down here and get your looks at some. I know they can fill a lot more up inside. I know they're going to do that, but there's already a good number of cars on the outside. So I think they're going to have a lot of inventory once it comes down to things getting going. Here with my guest, Bill Madden. And Bill, when we left, we talked about the Buccaneers, but now college football. And we'll concentrate as much as we can on what's going on in the state of Florida. Right now, we're in the midst of, actually, we're at the end of what just happened, where we saw I wouldn't say the most competitive national championship game at the end, but the two games before that were fantastic.
Yeah.
Where Washington was able to overcome Texas, and Michigan and Alabama went to
Probably
overtime.
the best game of the bowl season, I think, was the Michigan-Alabama game, right down to the wire, overtime, all that.
No doubt about it. And then Michigan went out, and I mean, I was looking for reasons to say about Michael Penix didn't play well or whatever, but honestly, Michigan played really well.
Yeah,
got
Washington had a shot.
To a lead.
Yeah, they did. Very small, and the window of opportunity was very, like I said, very short. And when they didn't score and at least tie or get close, Michigan was a better team. You could tell.
Right.
They were more physical. They held more. Yeah.
Yeah. And but Michigan and Blake Corum being their main guy, but Edwards, Donovan Edwards, he comes out and has two long runs on a sort of a variation of what you see a lot at the high school level and with Venice High School when they ran what's called a jumbo package.
Yeah.
They just went heavy and they went to the one side, and here they come downhill, and Edwards just sort of made a one-cut move and just got a nice block and off to the races and kind of got him out ahead.
I think at one point Edwards had 3 carries, 93 yards. Mm-hmm. Yeah, wasn't too bad. Yeah,
he was having a nice night on a very few carries.
And I'll give Washington just a little bit of credit. That game could have got away from them really fast, but their defense responded in the second and third quarter before Michigan finally took control in the fourth and closed things up.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So with that, again, I think Michigan maybe was the rightful winner but looking at how their season went. Maybe not the toughest schedule in the world, but I will tell you that they won handily, and I think the Ohio State game was sort of the solidifier for me to their regular season, and then come through in the playoffs like they did.
And before we go to maybe Florida and some of the local schools, so let me ask your opinion. Is John Harbaugh going to be at Michigan this year? I'm going to say no.
Jim
Harbaugh, excuse me. Yeah. Jim Harbaugh. John's be coaching this weekend. I think Jim is going to the NFL. He's had a lot of talks with San Diego. He's going to go somewhere where there's a good quarterback. Right. And obviously San Diego has a great quarterback. And I think he's interested in the West Coast.
Yep.
I believe that deal will get done in the next few days. There's been reports that Michigan has been trying to sign him for longer deals, but he's put a stall on that, and I don't think it's going to happen.
I think Jim Harbaugh is a guy who, I'm not saying he wears out his welcome. I think he just wears you out because he's to be kind, he's quirky.
I think he's a little bit like John Gruden-ish, or maybe John Gruden's a little like Harbaugh.
Yeah.
The fact that I don't see him being long-term anywhere more than 5 years.
He's not abrasive, but he wants what he wants.
Yeah.
And he will do whatever it takes to get it. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean longevity is in the books. He got a national championship back to his alma mater. I mean, you can't, and if he does take the next deal from Michigan, if he doesn't go to the pros, then I think it'll be hard for him to go to the pros at some point in time because I can tell you that what that's going to mean is that Jim Harbaugh is not going to leave until somebody kicks him out of Michigan.
And the funny thing, I heard an interview with him and his brothers and his dad even, and his dad won a title as a coach in smaller schools in Division 1AA or what have you. And his brother obviously won a title with Baltimore, and it became a topic of conversation at the Thanksgiving and the Christmas holidays, how they had the titles and Jim did not.
Right.
And now he has one. You know, he can jump to the front table and share his stories.
Here. Right.
Yeah.
No
now
doubt.
I think he wants to top it again because he almost had a Super Bowl win, obviously, a few years back against his brother.
And I always thought, while he's a very good college coach, maybe even a great one at this point.
Sure.
I thought he was better suited in the NFL. I thought he had a relatability as being a player and had a lot of success in the NFL. I mean, he was a guy that if you watched him play, he was the guy that people rallied around quite a bit. I thought his success at San Francisco was very, very well manufactured by him in particular.
Yep.
So I really believe that I thought he would have more success in the NFL. San Diego being a destination, maybe he did have an interview just recently with a sort of a ready-made situation for him. He has a quarterback in place in Herbert. You got some skilled guys on the outside, but I think the thing he'll do is he'll build that running game up, which will help his defense. And he's got some dudes on defense as well, with Khalil Mack and some of those guys that were there before. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with him. If he does go to the NFL and it is San Diego, I think Kansas City is going to finally get their big challenger. And that division, if Las Vegas can get their stuff together, my goodness, it could be the division.
And another team looking for a head coach, they may re-sign Antonio Pierce, who is there.
I think they got to.
They probably will. But one thing more about Jim Harbaugh is everywhere he's been very, very, very successful.
Yes.
I mean, leading in from the small school in Kentucky to Stanford to San Francisco and, of course, Michigan. Now, he's always had good resources. I'll give him that. But he has performed. So I'll give him credit because everywhere he went, he's produced a winner.
I totally agree. With that, let's go towards the Big Five in college football. Florida State, obviously, we talked about this prior to the end of our end of our year's show. But Florida State, coming off of a disappointing situation, not getting in to the national championship playoff, but to get beat as bad as they did by Georgia.
That was bad.
The lead into that for our conversation is that they were decimated by opt-outs, portal transfers, and whatnot. No excuse. I mean, everybody has that happen, but their program sort of didn't hold on to the guys to get that one last game to kind of prove their worthiness. They just said, no, we're good to go, and off goes your two starting wide receivers, starting defensive ends, you name it. They lost their starting running back. And it was sort of an embarrassing situation. You sort of felt a little bit from Mike Norvell because it wasn't something maybe he deserved to go through that drubbing. But it just goes to show how the portal, from it giveth and it taketh away very, very quickly.
Yeah, and other teams in the past, they wondered, like, okay, how come Alabama and Michigan got their players to play in bowl games? And there was rumors out there that there was NIL money and boosters stepped up. Who knows? But I don't think Florida State wanted to deal with any of that. I almost feel like between them and Georgia, they both made a statement, one going the opposite way, that Georgia's like, we're going to beat them by as many as we can.
Right. And so a very interesting conversation, which I thought was very poignant, that I had New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm.
One of our coaches at Venice said, look, he said, this is a testimony to the program. He said, nothing against Mike Norvell, but when you build your house on portal bricks, so to speak, they're there as hired guns. They're there as, I'm here to advance my narrative, to advance who I am as a player. And maybe you're not all in on the Garnet and Gold or whoever you may go in the portal from. So you looked at it and said the opt-outs, if in this case there was a lot of them there, were mostly a Florida State issue. Georgia only had, I think, one opt-out. Maybe a few portal people, but their key players came to prove to everybody that they were worthy of being in that top four and giving themselves the momentum to move forward. And I think it helped recruiting as well. And then in a year ago, when Alabama didn't make the playoff, both Bryce Young and Will Anderson played in the bowl game to the top
Which
four
I was referring
players.
to earlier, yeah.
Amazing, right? You don't expect that. So the program itself, while it's very healthy and doing very well again in the portal this year, there's something to be said about
pride,
your program, and what you're playing for.
Absolutely, and Georgia had a deeper team by far.
100%.
First time FSU has sniffed maybe getting to the playoffs, getting close.
Yeah,
and their core got them there, but beyond underneath the core, I don't think there was a whole lot because they're still building it. But when those top guys opt out, you were left with a thin shell of players, and it showed itself.
My feeling was this: like if you went to watch a movie set or a movie being made, it looks like you're standing in front of a big building, but it's a piece of cardboard. It looks right, it seems right, but then if you look behind the curtain or behind whatever, there's nobody there. So I don't know. I think what Florida State has got to do, as being in the situation the way things are, they've got to get more recruits to come in, so that you're building players, you're building continuity, as opposed to saying, let's litter our lineup with just portal guys. Do I think that the portal is necessary? Yes. I think that if you look at free agency in any situation, this is basically what it is, in baseball, football, whatever else, if you're a free agent dominant team, normally this is what happens to you. You don't do very well. Look at the Yankees for years to try to build
Well, you can have short-term success if you have the right leader at the helm. But I did hear a conversation that someone had with Nick Saban regarding, and you might want to bring him up, and we'll talk about him a little bit.
Yeah.
That one of the things I think he wants to do now as retire is get on some kind of committee to study this and help make decisions on how this is monitored, if they even can legally. I'm not even sure.
Eventually, it's going to be unionized. It's going to be something along those lines.
So I think he wants to be part of that conversation, and that's a good person to have to maybe get some continuity and some rules.
And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. And I think he was done as a coach, but I think this portal situation, especially when he sort of fumed about what Texas A&M was doing with $23 million. This is not NIL. This is you're paying players to come to you to play, which the NIL, everybody thinks NIL is that. No, NIL is about going out, Bill Madden, and going out and say, I'm going to go to Auburn, I'm going to go to Florida State, go out there and get the local car dealer or whoever it may be and say, hey, guess what? I'm a good player, and I think I'm worthy of being your spokesperson or whatever it may be, and then going out and getting that. It never was meant to be where a bunch of boosters put a bunch of money in a collective, and then you handed it out like it was just a payola.
Well, in August, I was on a show with you, and actually we talked about this. And one of the things we talked about is we're going to see failures on this, and we've seen them.
Right.
You bring, like you said, you mentioned these hired guns in. They don't feel part of the program. If they don't feel like they're getting their worth in, they're just going to drop out, and you see that happen a lot now lately. So there's good and bad from it, but someone who stewards that has to be really very on top of it, and it's getting so tough to manage. That's why I think there maybe should be some kind of limits or something in place to control it a little bit, because it is getting. We talked about the wild, wild west. Here we are.
And so with that, Florida, Miami, the big three, maybe had a few missteps in the recruiting side of things. We're trying to plug holes with portal guys. I don't know how far it takes either program. Miami, obviously a bowl team, but didn't really perform well at the end. Florida, not even near a bowl team at this point. Are they going to be able to build themselves? Had a good recruiting class, but got out recruited went from a great recruiting class to a good recruiting class, trying to portal away into some guys who can fill holes. But I will say this: the other two of the Big Five, USF and UCF, and I look at the portal being something that's fantastic for them, because you get the guys that have been, let's say, maybe backups at Florida or Florida State or Alabama, whatever it may be, and you say, hey, look, come on down here. We're in the Big 12. We're in this, whatever it may be, and I think portal guys are going to be not the biggest situation, but or situations that can to send them over the top. Now, the flip side of that is when you're at UCF and you're Dylan Gabriel, and you decide, even though I'm doing really well here at UCF and everybody likes me, I'm going to Oklahoma because now I can really show what I'm worth. So it can work both ways, but I think those programs, especially USF, because they were at the bottom, they were playing some pretty horrendous football for a few years there, and now they've got themselves back up to where they got into a bowl game. They got themselves back up to where they're sort of people are looking around. I think the portal will help them propel themselves, and then recruiting will come in right afterwards.
Yeah, and the grass is always greener from a player's perspective. But sometimes, but who's giving them advice? Is it coaches in another team? Is it friends and family? Right. It's a lot to put on a 18, 19, 20-year-old person to say, hey, what are you doing at school? They're not playing you, even though you should wait your turn possibly and star the last 2-3 years. They're getting a lot of bad advice, and to have that kind of balance between portal and recruits is probably something that teams are going to work on to be optimal without being too heavy on one side or the other.
Right, and I think sometimes you say, what's the what program do you want to be like? What do you want to emulate? Well, obviously, look at Alabama and Georgia. You look at Michigan, a little bit Ohio State. While they do have portal situations going there, they're still building the old school way, which is get these guys coming at it from out of high school. They got loyalty to the program. I'll ask you this question. I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks as well. What happened to going to play for the team that you grew up liking?
Sometimes it doesn't fit, but yeah, I get it.
Sometimes there's been blind loyalty in some cases. Hey, I grew up an Auburn fan, or I grew up a Florida fan, whatever it is. and I'm this guy. I can't wait to go play there because that's my team. I don't even think there's even like loyalty to the state that you're from. I think now it's just like everybody looks at it and says, what's the best place for me to start? What's the place for me for this? As opposed to saying, no, it's going to be 3 years of my life. Why would I want to go to, way out in nowhere land because I have the promise of starting and the potential of starting. And then a year after that, they get a guy better than me and I'm on the bench and I'm in the middle of some tundra I don't want to be in. I could be home where my mom and dad can come watch me from 2 hours away.
Yeah, two things on that. I'll give you a good example of somebody who actually benefited from the portal. Bo Nix, perfect example.
Yeah.
Wasn't doing well at all. Well, he actually did very well at Auburn. A lot of coaching changes. Thought he'd be better off with a coaching staff that was in place instead of bringing a whole new system in, which he had to almost do every year when he was there. Went to Oregon, obviously did great. He's going to be a top 10 draft pick probably in the NFL this year.
Right.
Another thing I want to bring up is, recruiting new athletes into your program from high school. There's a whole other side of recruiting now. Now you got to recruit your players that are in your program.
Absolutely right.
And I think they're going to expand their departments and probably bring on more coaches and more recruiters to have constant communication with some of your in-house players to make sure and get a feel for like who's leaving, who's not, kind of thing.
Well, it's funny. The one guy, when Billy Napier came in, he put together a staff of 150 people, or whatever you want to call it, and it really was about the players and whatever else. You would think that with that many coaches and that many people on staff, that you would know exactly what was going on, and nobody would want to leave. You'd be have the pulse of everything. But he's had the opposite effect. He's bringing guys in and cycling them out very fast. I guess he's trying to build his culture and the kind of player he wants. But that's not an easy way to go about it. You can't replace from portal players and graduation 45% of your team every year.
It's going to cause your team to go like this: win, lose, and
so you've got
boosters don't like that.
No.
Presidents don't like it. Athletic directors don't like it. Athletic directors don't like it when you're winning 9 games one year and 5 the next, 11 one year, 7 the next. I mean, Nick Saban was the ultimate continuity guy as far as always winning and being in the national title hope. And other coaches have approached that. Kirby Smart is there.
Right.
Jim Harbaugh is there probably. Ohio State's been there. But trying to plug holes when you have too many holes to plug for some of the smaller schools won't work, but it can give them a short-term fix and that maybe get the program up a bit.
And I think that prototype for that is Florida State. I think Mike Norvell, he got enough guys in there to kind of fill some holes, and then really didn't, and some guys who were exceptional in regards to in the portal. That really did a wonderful job for him.
So I looked up the top portal teams ranked are right now, the top 3 as far as number of commitments they got so far.
As far as at the top 3, and then Florida State was number 3.
That's correct. Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin being number 1. Has 15 commits, not the most of anybody, but they best quality according to the rankings that people give them. With Texas A&M being second, FSU third, Colorado 4, Dion.
Well, that's his whole program.
Again.
Yeah, it's all portal guys.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say that about Lane Kiffin. Maybe his best player, the running back, Judkins, I think his last name is.
Mm-hmm.
He left. He said, I'm out. And so he lost in the portal, but like I said, the portal giveth and the portal taketh away.
I think somebody like Lane Kiffin is I think he likes this chaos.
It fits him.
Yes,
suits him.
it does. And some coaches obviously do not like that. Mm-hmm. And I'd probably tend towards the lead to the older coaches a little more and say,
again, Nick Saban.
Like
I think this is probably what pushed Nick Saban out the door.
I think it helped. Yes.
Yeah. But again, this whole setup with the portal and how things are being done, and it's going to be an interesting mix of things. Ultimately, I'll give you one quick kind of scenario. Heard it. I thought about this. I also heard it from somebody else, and the person who said it was on a national program. They said it could happen. It might take 30 years to happen. I don't think it'll take 30 years to happen. I think what's going to happen is there'll be no more letter of intent when these kids from Venice or anywhere around here are signing a piece of paper. It's going to be a contract, and the contract's going to say you're going to give us 3 years, and this is what you're signing for, and it'll have incentives. It'll have whatever it may be attached to it. And you got to give us 3. It doesn't matter if the coach leaves. That says you're coming to the university.
Or if you're redshirted or whatever.
Whatever it may be, you got 3 years. Because that's when you can go pro. We can't stop you. So at that point, you're automatically a free agent no matter what.
So they want to adopt a college baseball type of system.
Sure.
Where you have to stay a certain amount of time before you can declare.
You're there 3, then you can go if you want to, or you can go portal if you want to. and then you can figure out you get one freebie in the portal after that, and one you got to sit out, or one you got to pay whatever it may be, however it works. Maybe you get no money. I don't know how it works. And then you have that, and then the NCAA becomes sort of like our federal government. They create the laws, they create they do the oversight, they do whatever, but they're not involved in any of the money that's being paid out. So where that comes from is from the conferences, and this is when the conferences become all powerful.
So we're going back to the 60s and 70s where boosters were just running rampant and just giving everybody what they want.
But now the money is being funneled. So the contract when CBS is
funneled
with the SEC or ESPN, whatever, that money goes through. There's a salary cap attached to everything. There's a union. You have to have all that different stuff that goes into that. And now they're paid to play.
But the thing is, union and stuff, that's great when NFL, because there's 30-some teams. How many teams in college are they? It's going to be too hard to manage.
Think about it. What happens is this. So go back to my Billy Napier scenario. There's 150 people on staff. This doesn't apply just to football. This is gymnastics. This is lacrosse. This is everything, because everybody who walks in is going to be in the same boat. You're going to sign a contract. Now, is it going to be the same amount of money as maybe a football player or a basketball player or even a great baseball player? No. But it's still going to be the same deal where you're coming in and signing contracts, because you have to unionize everybody at that point. They're all coming in to be part of the athletic system. It will take a mammoth amount of effort to do, but once it's in place, the structure will be there. It'll be in place, and then there won't be this sort of mass amount of chaos that goes into every offseason.
Did they discuss that filtering down into high school, which
it's already going to happen?
Okay, because we talked about this earlier this year as well, as far as the high school kids transferring a lot, going to different schools. They have a choice now, right?
So what the NCAA did with the portal and everything else they've done, the NIL stuff, is no different what the state of Florida did, where FHSAA said, hey, guess what? We're not going to stop you. Do what you want to do. They created this environment. They created the situation. And does it work for everybody? No, it doesn't. But everybody has the same opportunities. Everybody has the same situation. And again, going back to what I said, where's the loyalty to the University of Florida or Florida State or Miami when you grew up in this area? Well, now you say the same thing. Is there loyalty to the maroon colored for Riverview, or the Venice green, or the Northport blue, or whatever it may be?
Well, and one of the reasons for that, John, too, also is the coverage. I mean, the loyalty exists. Florida State, Miami was on all the time.
Yep.
You can watch any college football game you want now if you write package in your TV.
Right.
So
you're exposed.
Yes, exactly, out there. So there's more choices out there. And that part's better as far as picking teams. But as far as going house to house, team to team, being a portal 5 times in your 7th year,
it's too much. If you're not, and those guys that aren't successful at one place rarely have achieved success at the next place. It's not so much like, all I needed was a chance. There's a few of those out there, but for the most part, when you get on campus and they know what kind of guy you are, you grow up, you figure it out, and then you stay there for the most part. But these guys that are hauling butt, right away, I gotta wonder why.
I'm sure there's a study. Well, it will be coming out shortly. A study out there will look at every transfer portal out there and track them, how they did, and come up percentages and look at things of that nature.
100% right.
Yeah, but I think we're probably a couple years away from getting some hard data on everything.
No doubt. All right, with that, we'll take another break. Come back here and we'll talk a little bit more about Nick Saban as he retires, and a little bit about Bill Belichick as well. Kind of touch that a little bit, and then delve into the matchups for every NFL game coming up this weekend, and see what we think as far as winners and losers and who's doing what and where. So we'll do that. Go Bucks, right? So with that, we'll take another break. Come back here at Douglas Jeep's new showroom, used car showroom, and we'll talk about the NFL and a little bit about some icons leaving their places where they've made their money, or made their hay, I should say. With that, be right back here at Douglas Jeep. we're back here on the 941 Sports Zone, and we're going to start talking a little bit about the NFL playoffs, a little about the matchups. But before we do so, cannot not talk about,
Double negative.
Negative, yeah.
Okay.
Nick Saban retiring as probably the most. I guess he's the king. He's the GOAT as far as college football coaches are concerned. Mm-hmm. And then Bill Belichick agreeing with the Patriots that he's going to move on, and looks like he's going to move on to another team. He's got a lot of interest. He's interviewed. There's speculation about Dallas. There's speculation about a lot of different things that may or may not happen. But in both cases, I think no matter what happens to either one of those coaches, they have proven their worthiness and the accolades that they've gotten.
We can't agree though. Saban is done. He's not coming back at all. No. He is done coaching but I think Belichick will be back somewhere in the NFL. He had interviews with Atlanta. I can't see that. It's
strange, but that was one of the first things I heard. I said, Atlanta. He doesn't have the team, the quarterback, really. None of that stuff.
And I cannot see him in Dallas. Belichick and Jerry Jones, it doesn't feel to me like that would work. I don't know what your opinion is on that, but it just seems like oil and water.
You got to think that Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells are very good friends. And Bill Parcells' tenure in Dallas didn't go as well as he would have wanted. One playoff appearance in his 4 years down in Dallas. So you got to think that Parcells or Belichick is reaching out to him, one of the others, saying, so what can I expect from Jerry in regards to his stuff? And Jerry's going to be involved no matter what. And he's the
team,
GM,
his option, right?
His team, yep. He's the GM, so he's the guy. So I don't know about that. Again, San Diego seems to be the gem kind of team that seems everybody wants to get that job, or that job might be the most likable job. I don't know where Belichick will land, but
you remember the Parcells quote? I've heard you say it millions of times. They want you to make the meal, but they don't want you to buy the groceries and pick out your food for you. I mean, that's the kind of thing that Belichick wants. He has to have control of that operation.
That's why he's gone at New England right now. I don't think he got to be a worse coach. I think he was a below average general manager the last 4 or 5 years.
I think, yes, the talent defensively is there. I don't think he has a deny for that, but he has failed offensively to produce playmakers, both as a wide receiver or skill position players in the last, I would say, half a decade.
Absolutely, 100%. And you see, both Parcells and Belichick have never been guys who put a lot of stock in wide receivers. I think they can kind of
interchange
the parts. They've always had multiple running backs, guys who can do third down stuff. You think about. I mean, if you really looked at the profile of the successful Patriot teams and the successful New York Giant teams from the '80s, they're not much different. You have like guys like Dave Meggett, who were. Then you had the little scat backs that Brady threw to on third down.
Yep.
You had Phil McConkey. And there's your Amendola and Edelman and all those guys and Welker and all those guys.
Yep.
You look at the tight end, a guy like Gronk, Mark Bavaro was a gigantic target. I mean, maybe had legendary runs.
That's not a coincidence. Those guys coached together, and they had probably the same philosophy.
And they love those stand-up defensive ends. They love those corners that play up in your physical corners. So he's really doing a lot of the same things. Just, however, he could never after Brady. And I think if you look at Belichick, when there was a point where he was going to say Jimmy G is going to take over and Tom's going to go do his thing somewhere else, and he was overrode by Bob Kraft. I'm not saying that was the worst part of it. I think that was his transition point to get his guy in there to do what he wanted, and it would have perpetuated the success.
And Belichick had the same philosophy as Parcells. Always get rid of guys a year before they kind of reach their peak. So you almost like you sell high, and then you have somebody come in and replace them, or you get get good players behind them that can develop, and always sell them high before they start going down the hill.
Especially in positions that I don't want to call them replaceable. But like Logan Mankins was a guy I always looked at and said, you know what? He went to the Bucs and he did okay, but Logan Mankins was a Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
But Belichick's like, I can find a guy to play guard for me in
For
the
half
5th
price.
round.
Yeah, yeah.
And like whoever it may be, I know how to look for that guy. I can find that guy. So he was always able to put those pieces. He never paid high for, he didn't go out and spend $60 million on a center.
No, and I think he was a great GM with as far as managing his team, but as far as a draft, big zero for the last, like I said, 6 years.
Well, his big thing was trade down, get more picks, find
Yep.
bodies, and ultimately you have to have some splash players. You can't build a team on 100 5th-round draft picks. So that was a big problem for him in the long run. But again, salute to those two guys. What great careers. Belichick will probably be back, and he'll probably go for that wins record over Mr. Shula.
Yeah, my guy.
Your guy. And so it'll be a situation of how. And again, it's not a foregone conclusion. Was it 18 wins away, something like that?
Yeah, it's going to take him probably 2 successful years to
right. And then depending where he goes, it may you go out and win 6, and you're not looking at he may not get there. But I mean, I would think that he'll try to find a place where he can. If that's the goal, I think he'll manage it some way or another.
The only reason I'd say he'd go to the Falcons, and I can't think of many, is that almost like the same reason maybe Brady went there. It was a division that he knew he could win. I think Belichick goes down there and maybe gets a quarterback, or maybe he said, I can work with Russell Wilson and bring him in.
Yeah.
And I can win that division and get the playoffs and go from there and get a shot.
Yeah.
That's the only reason. That's the only thing I can see.
I think that there may be some pieces that he likes there too. You never know. They've got good running backs. They got some things that are out there. So you'll see. They weren't the worst team, but they definitely did. They lacked a little bit of
it was definitely
talent.
The Bucs #1, the Saints not far behind.
Right.
And then Atlanta below that, and Carolina obviously way down
Struggling.
below. Yeah.
Right. So now we've talked a little about the football, the NFL again. Bucs Detroit. We've talked about that earlier. My head says it's Detroit.
Favored by, I want to say 6.
I think that sounds fair. I mean, it might even could be even more than that.
Yeah, in Detroit. And then the funny thing is that game's 3:00 on Sunday. They put the Buffalo game. It's in Buffalo. It's going to be cold again. I'm not sure if it's snowing now, but it's going to be ice cold at 8:00 on Sunday night.
Right.
TV all the way. I mean, there's nothing to do with comfortability of fans or anything.
That's just getting the primetime game is all it is.
It's more attractive.
So I think we both think that Detroit, but again, I'm not going to count Tampa Bay out because Baker's going to gunsling. It's inside. If it was, if this is an outdoor game, I might see a little bit of an issue for Tampa being a warm weather team. But I think that helps a little bit maybe with the spread especially. But I think Detroit's they're a well-rounded team. I like where they're headed.
They got 2 good running backs. They got Gibbs from Alabama, and I'm drawing a blank on the
I know it's Montgomery.
Montgomery, yes, also a good running back. So they're not gonna Baltimore didn't run Philadelphia didn't run the ball really at all with Swift at all. I think he ran 10 times last night.
Yeah.
And of course Jalen didn't run at all, really much at all. You're going to see a lot of that with Detroit. Detroit focuses on running the game and play action. And Amon St. Brown is one of their best receiver, number 14. They need to do something against their best corner or double or something on him. But they also have a great tight ends, and they have opposite receivers that can still make catches. So they easily could have lost Detroit actually to the Rams. That was a good game. I'm not sure if you saw that or not.
Very, very, very good game. I mean, as far as competitiveness, I didn't see much of the Rams this year, but I thought that they played fantastically.
Rams came on strong the last 5-6 weeks this season, just like some of the teams that are still in the playoffs. So.
And he's done very well with his ability to replace guys that he brings Puka Nacua in there and it looks like a unbelievable draft pick with that. But again, he has good running backs. I mean, the Williams kid out of Notre Dame comes in there and 6 games in, he's tearing it up too. So McVay showed why he's a commodity as a coach, and I think that's going to be. I think if Stafford comes back healthy next year, then I think the Rams are going to be really pushing the 49ers next year in that division.
Well, think about this. If Tampa can go to Detroit and win, which I'd say I give them a shot, but Detroit's great at home. Goff plays way up here at home against being on the road, and then somehow Green Bay goes to San Francisco and wins. Guess who's hosting the championship game?
Detroit.
Tampa.
Oh, Tampa. That's right.
I'm sorry, if Tampa won.
Yeah, Tampa. Yeah.
If Tampa could win, and then Green Bay won,
It'd be Tampa.
it'd be Tampa hosting the
Wow.
the championship game.
And then you look at Jordan Love, and you do think you have a chance over Baker would have the experience over him.
Jordan Love has probably been the best quarterback in the last 8 weeks, short of C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
Like I said, his quarterback rating is off the charts. He's thrown 21 touchdown passes in the last 9 games with 0 picks.
That's next level.
It's like,
that's really good.
Okay, so it's Aaron Rodgers in
Yeah.
Green Bay right now because
Hey, and
he's
everybody
he's
said,
making
let's
it
see what
forget.
happens. And they did it the right way. Again, 3 years on the bench, you figure it out, and boom.
Had you ever
and he
seen
goes.
anybody like that, though? The first, I'd say, 5 games of the year, they were calling for Jordan Love to be
benched. Out.
And then they stuck with him, and a phenomenal job by the coaching staff to get him ready.
LaFleur did a great job.
Yep, and
He
coaching
did a
him
great
up,
job.
and his final 9 to 10 games as good as anybody in the league.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So with that, Packers at 49ers, for as good as the Packers are playing, I like the 49ers. At home.
I agree.
Solid. Brock Purdy is the, he's sort of got that steadiness to him. He makes plays where he needs to, and they are surrounded by talent. Really did a nice job both on offense and defense. I think this is a real chance for San Francisco to get that Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I think McCaffrey is the key. Everything revolves around him in the offense. There was a lull this year when San Francisco lost a few games in a row.
Yeah,
and
like Purdy lost track of things there.
Yeah,
for a
and Purdy
while.
looked bad, but unlike Philly, they bounced back and started winning towards the end of the year and solidified themselves as the #1 seed.
Yep.
Unlike Philly, who blew everything.
Right.
The one small chance I will say, and I told us to a Packer fan last Sunday before the game, against Dallas, if you win the toss, take the ball and go and score. Dallas doesn't like playing from behind. They like to blow people out and stay ahead. Maybe that same philosophy works with San Francisco if they can get ahead and maybe change the game. But I don't see San Francisco getting away from running McCaffrey 25, 28 times.
No, because he's explosive. He might give you 4, yard here, 4 yards there, but he's going to get you 70.
Yeah, and then they just throw the ball at the backfield, but he has great hands, so you can't stop him forever. But I would concentrate on stopping him and then worry about if you can stop Ayuk and Deebo Samuel on the outside.
Don't underestimate that bye week too. Everybody got a little healthier.
Maybe rustier too, because when
that's the only part.
When we get into the Baltimore thing, I'm going to bring that up as well. Lamar has some struggles.
Well, let's
with
go
that.
there. Houston versus Baltimore. Obviously, you mentioned a little bit of snippet about C.J. Stroud, about how well he's played as a rookie. Unbelievable.
Rookie of the year, obviously.
Didn't see it coming because most of the Ohio State quarterbacks look a certain way at Ohio State. Doesn't really transfer, but did a fantastic job. And when the draft was coming around last year, you heard a few things about, man, guys who are sold on Stroud. I mean, they're all about it. And I thought Carolina was inching their way towards Stroud, but I think right this year he's clearly the rookie of the year as far as the offensive side of the ball is concerned, and has done a fantastic job to put the Texans in a situation where they're legit. They're a legit contender, but the Ravens at home, oof, that's tough.
Yeah, I only thing I say about that, Lamar his last 4 games playoffs, I think he's 1-3. And I think it'd been better for them to play on instead of having a bye week.
Okay.
And that, in my opinion, because I think he likes to stay in rhythm. So if there's any chance for Houston, I think they should jump on him early, maybe get to that rushiness off on Baltimore, so maybe they can get a lead and maybe have a big play happen, and maybe they press a little bit, and then there's some turnovers. So I think there's a chance, but I do like Baltimore, but I don't think they're going to blow them out, not at all.
No, because I think it's going to come down to the way the Texans have played defense has been a little lost in the Stroud story. D'Amico Ryans being a guy that came with a lot of respect as far as his defensive prowess as a coach.
Young coach, too. I was surprised at how well he managed his staff in both sides. I thought maybe to be good defensively and struggle offensively. No.
I watched the better part of 3 or 4 games with Houston, and they fly to the ball. They are, and Will Anderson has proven to be a guy that's played very well. Jonathan Gennard, they got different guys that they can play, and so I mean, talk about a quick turnaround. 1 or 2 players can make that big of a difference, and for Houston, those 2 draft picks have really paid dividends for them early.
And one thing about Houston is they're going to throw the ball down the field a lot. They don't try to get 3 yards on a cloud of dust and then a little play action here and a short passes. No, they throw the ball deep down the field. So they're looking for big plays against Baltimore, and we'll see if they can get in.
No doubt. Marquee matchup. Obviously, the 2 best quarterbacks. They're arguably the 2 best quarterbacks in the league with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Chiefs at Bills. First time Mahomes plays on the road.
I was going to ask you, what is Mahomes' playoff record on the road?
It's 0-0.
0-0.
He's
That's
never had to
correct.
worry about it, which is unbelievable. It just shows you how it goes to the dominance of Kansas City and the AFC. Even though they've had some great games, to have that home field advantage every year for how many years with Mahomes has been phenomenal. I don't like Buffalo. Okay, for maybe
because you're a Jets fan.
Well,
right?
but you're a Dolphins fan, so you
true.
understand the same thing. But no, I don't like them for a couple of reasons. I think McDermott is good and done a nice job, but things got away with him a little bit this year. He could have lost his job for some things that happened a few years ago. Some comments he had made that were just not very smart on his behalf. Players didn't come to his rescue real quick, so I wasn't quite sure about that. So I think he's a little bit of a liability. I think that Josh Allen, when he came out, I said
raw.
Go get him.
Yeah, but raw.
Let him learn.
Yep.
Well, he's learned on the job, but he still does some things that are childish, immature.
But not in the last month. So maybe he had a good talking to at some point because he was throwing interceptions at the yin-yang every week.
He's prone to it.
Yes.
And my concern for Buffalo, why I don't like them in this matchup, is he's going to want to win and outdo Patrick Mahomes at the same time. Not win the game with going 50% passing. He's going to want to be, he's got a little cam in him. He likes to flex his muscles and pull his shirt open and do all that stuff. He pretends to be not that guy, but he really is that guy.
Well, he was that guy the other day.
Absolutely.
And he ran, you saw that, was it a 40 or 50-yard touchdown run he had where it almost looked like he was starting to slide.
He did.
So they stopped.
Oh, they were calling him out on today. They said he did the Kenny Pickett, because Kenny Pickett did that when he was at Pitt, and people were like, "Can you really do that when you're going down and guys have to hold up and like hesitate and you keep going?" But either way, I mean, obviously it's fair is fair. There's no penalty called on that. But I just sometimes wonder about him. And then the other factor is that if Stephon Diggs doesn't get his touches, he starts to get a little whiny on the sidelines. There's a lot of things that I could see crumble with the Buffalo program, where I don't think that'll happen with the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are on board with each other the whole way.
Don't forget, though, the Chiefs had a period of time this year where they struggled mightily.
Oh, they're not the same Chiefs.
Rashee Rice became their number one receiver the last couple of weeks, and he's been making some big catches. But they still struggled to find their worth offensively, and I think they found it a little bit last week and the week before. But for me, actually, this is a Josh Allen game. For me, I'm going to say Buffalo is going to win this game, in my opinion.
I like Kansas City.
Mahomes scares the heck out of me,
right,
though, because like the Super Bowl last year, and Philly had him up, and he's found a way to win.
Buffalo, again, tends to sputter in games. Even with Pittsburgh, there's a bit of a sputter. If Kansas City plays their best game against Buffalo's best game, I think Kansas City wins. I think Kansas City is if they, again, best game, if Mahomes is on, then it's crazy.
I think it's even more than Mahomes. If Isaiah Pacheco, who's became a running back with a physical force lately,
right?
Actually, the whole year, he's the hardest. He's like the heart and soul of their offense now,
right
behind Mahomes.
You're afraid he's going to get hurt when he hits the hole.
Yes, he runs
angry. That hard. Yeah.
Yes.
Knees are high, and he's coming all in. It's like he's going to knock himself out.
And if he can get 70, 85, 80, 90 yards, that's going to be bad news for Buffalo. If they can slow him down and make Kansas City and those young wide receivers, maybe do some things that they did in the middle of the year and the beginning of the year where they weren't looking well, I like Buffalo in Buffalo.
And everybody over time, they've always said that this weekend, the divisional playoffs, is the best weekend of the year as far as football in the NFL, because the teams you've got the good stories with like the Bucs are.
You got 4 games.
You've got Detroit on the way up. You got 4 games. They're all going to be somewhat in prime time.
Yep.
So they're all great games, and so it should be a phenomenal weekend. And this is the one you got to sit down and say, "Hey, this is 2 days of watching some football.
Yeah,
we're going to get into it."
I hate to say it. I hope my wife's not watching, but I plan my weekend around.
Right.
I'm sure you do.
Go early in the morning, get your stuff done.
Yes. The lawn's cut.
Everything's great.
The pool's taken care of.
You can't tell me anything I need to do.
Dogs
all
fed.
be taken care of.
We're all good.
So with that, definitely watch that. All right, we'll take our final time out, come back and do our What's Bugging Me segment. Maybe we've kind of done predictions, so we'll just go right to What's Bugging Me.
Okay.
But we'll do that. Thank you again to Douglas G for having us, and thank you to Truly Nolan for sponsoring our next segment, which is What's Bugging Me. Back here on the 941 Sports Zone right after this. And we're back here, the final segment of the 941 Sports Zone for this week. And What's Bugging Me, brought to you by Truly Nolan. Billy, I know there's probably a few things, but it's always, the What Bugging Me segment is always kind of funny because things will pop into my head that I didn't really expect that they were bugging me, and then I realized that bothered me more than I thought it did. And it's never quite what I think, but I'm not sure how you are, but what do you got for us this week?
Well, I got two small ones.
Okay.
What's bugged me was I was sick for half of December because some flu virus where I was coughing for every day for 2 weeks, and I don't know where I got it from, but whoever gave me, I hope you got it worse. So that bugged the heck out of me. And the last thing that bugged me is football is coming down to its end, and that I always get a little depressed.
Oh, more than depressed.
Towards the end, it's January,
agitated.
in February. And, the Super Bowl gets pushed off 1 week, it seems like, every year. I think in a couple of years it's going to be in July. But
You want to hear something funny? Not to interrupt you, but so I was sitting there the other night thinking, and I was scrolling the channels. I'm still a cable guy, everybody, so that's what I do.
I made the switch.
Okay, I'm a cable guy, and I'm scrolling through the channels, and there's a CBS Sports Network on channel 393. But just above that is channel 390, which is the Red Zone. And it's only on for, 18 weeks of the year, and it goes away. I'm looking at them and go, how stupid are they? Why don't they just show week one? As soon as the season's over, you have a channel that's blank. Why not just show the replay of 18 weeks worth of football? I think a lot of people would watch it because it's like, oh, remember this game? What's the harm? Is it cost you money to do that? Anyway,
what a great job.
My point.
Though.
Oh, fantastic job.
Yeah.
But he does it well.
He does it well. I mean, it's very hard sometimes when you have the octagon going with 8 games and you have guys in your ears and you're trying to talk about touchdowns and scores and turnovers all at once. I mean, you're watching at home, sometimes you're yelling at them, and once in a while a commercial will come on for 3 seconds, go, hey!
He does it very
good.
Very well. So, all right, if that was
that was it.
Right.
I'm just sad that football is, almost in our rearview mirror, but
All right, here's what's bugging me, and I think it bugs a lot of people too. National championship games, college basketball, college football, whatever else.
Is it Monday nights?
Monday night. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Can you not figure out how to put it on a Friday night or a Saturday night, whatever it may be? Monday night is the worst situation. Look. If I'm in California, I'm pissed. I got to rush home. And maybe that's why you don't get a lot of viewership in California, where it's East Coast bias. But why is it going to be on a Monday night? It's terrible. It's terrible. You can't. What do you go to watch it?
I asked this question for years and years and years. I heard from some people that said, okay, a lot of times on weekends, people go out and they want them at home where they can concentrate on the commercials and hear them. That was the explanation. The marketing of it, because some people watch it, they have to justify paying all this money to do that.
That's so stupid. That's asinine. The idea is this: that we've talked, and I've said it for years. I've even said Super Bowl should be on Saturday night.
Well, what would half the people not have? I'd say 1/3 of people watch Super Bowl because of what? The commercials.
Yes. Yeah. And so the whole idea is, but again, in college football or college basketball for that matter, you got a game coming on at 8:30, 8:15, 9 o'clock. Man, I mean, I don't want to sound old, but it's like I got to make sure I'm getting caffeinated. I'm running around the block. I'm doing whatever I can do to get myself ready to go. And you get these games, and people, I'm promising you, a game that gets out of control or a little out of hand or 2 or 3 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns up, there's people going like, I can't stay awake, click, I'm out.
Oh, I agree.
And so I don't understand how they can't figure out that you can have it on a Friday night or because
Saturday night would be optimal.
Absolutely. And again, you're looking at how does it affect the playoffs? How does it affect with the NFL? I don't know, but you can figure it out. I know you could.
Something like the Super Bowl would be easy because there's always, not always, but there's been 2 weeks between the conference championship and the Super Bowl. No reason you can't have it on the Saturday.
Absolutely. And again, I don't know why it has to be the very next week either. So I don't know how that. But so there's so many things you can do. The lead up to it would be better. Everything would be better. You're not. There's no conflict. What else is on? So you got to figure it out. Monday night sucks. Monday night is horrible in regards to how that for any championship game. There's no build up. I mean, go to a bar, it's closed. Nobody's doing anything for that stuff. It's ridiculous. So figure it out, NCAA or ESPN,
now,
whoever it is.
Replays, timeouts, it pushes 4 hours now.
Yeah,
easy.
Stupid. It's really ridiculous. And if I was the guy who sponsored the post-game show, I'd be like, screw this. There is no post-game show because nobody's watching it. Nobody cares. It's like, we're done. We're out.
Maybe that's when California's watching.
I guess. I don't know. And but again, they have to rush home in traffic to even see the kickoff because it was an 8 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah.
They're 5 o'clock. I'm sure they're not getting home early to go watch the game. It's just not happening. So imagine being in Washington. You know, your whole fan base is trying to rush to get home. I'm sure they managed it, but it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
They probably should have stayed at work then, right?
What did I get off early for this? I took the day off for this. So anyway.
And the next day.
Yeah, no, easily. So with that, Bill, thank you for being here tonight.
No problem.
Back in the swing of things with the Sports Zone, and hopefully we'll have you back here. And again, pretty soon we got some more football to talk about.
Amen.
We did last year. We didn't start. We'll delve into combine and free agencies down the road, and I know we'll
something
have a lot
to keep me
say
happy and motivated. Come on,
put a smile back on your face.
There you go.
And thanks to Vibrant Aspect Media, Francis Haynes over here, our guy who's back. I would say from a pretty tough vacation holiday week or two, huh? Yeah, he worked a lot, so he's back in the swing of things. So we'll get him invigorated over the next couple of weeks with our lively conversation here on the 941 Sports Zone. With that, thank you guys for watching. I'm John Mussone for Bill Madden. See you next time on the 941 Sports Zone.